Well, hello, everyone. This is Dr. Sally Good, and this is the podcast, The Good Body, Good Brain, where we interview really interesting and fascinating people from all over the world. And tonight, I have a very, very special guest that I want to introduce you to. Her name is Dr. Timmerman, R. Timmerman, Barbosa de Silva. There's more of that, though. And she is joining us from Florida this evening, from the big city of Miami. She's a psychotherapist, and she has a lot to tell us about some special things with relationships, couples, etc. So here she is, Dr. Patricia Timmerman. Hello.
Hi.
Well, I've got to ask you first, are you having a hurricane yet?
Not yet, thank goodness.
Okay, we'll keep our fingers crossed because we want this recording to be really, really good, okay? Now, you have an interesting background. You're not from Miami originally.
No, I am originally from Brazil. I was born and raised in São Paulo, and I moved to Miami when I was 14 years old.
Yes, and in Brazil, you were in an interesting community, a Jewish, Brazilian, Portuguese community, where you had to learn like two other languages, Hebrew and Portuguese.
Yeah, I mean, it was in Brazil. We have quite a tight, neat community of like a Jewish Brazilian community. That's where I grew up, and most of us are second generation Brazilians because our grandparents came from Europe or being either Ashkenazi or Sephardic from the Middle East and joined forces in Brazil.
Oh wow! Wow. So the dysphoria, like this part went to Brazil, right?
Mm-hmm.
And did you say Ashkenazi?
I am Ashkenazi, yeah.
Okay. And for those who don't understand what that means.
Okay, so Ashkenazi Jewish people are the ones who migrated from Europe. Sephardic are the ones who migrated from the Middle East. So there are a few differences in rituals, like the types of foods that we may or may not eat. The majority is the same, but we feel cultural differences.
Yes, and I met many, many people who in San Francisco who were from Morocco who were Sephardic, and they had a whole different. There were darker people. They had different kinds of cultural things because of being from Morocco. And now I have friends from Gibraltar who can see Morocco through their kitchen window. And so the world just keep getting smaller and smaller.
Yeah, an easy way to know the difference. I was going to say an easy way to know the difference from Ashkenazi to Sephardic is the skin color, right? Ashkenazi tends to be fairer, Sephardic tends to be tanner.
Yes, and that makes sense based on where they're coming from. Okay, so tell me a little bit about what got you into your line of work, and you can tell us a little bit about that too.
It's an interesting question. Again, being Jewish Brazilian, there were like 3 allowed professions. You're an attorney, you're a doctor, or you work in
doctor.
Right? My sister is an attorney. My brother works in banks, and I was going the doctor route, but I fell in love with the mind. And I remember my grandpa telling me, "You know what, Mama, the Ph.D. suffices." I was like, I got validation. But yeah, I was in my way in one direction until I ended up falling into another.
And it's taken you down a path where like you're really making your mark because you actually have a book out. Yay!
Right here.
I love that.
Yeah. Yeah, I have the gift of loving what I do. I fell in love with my profession, and so I'm one of the lucky ones.
Yes. And you started like compiling the sort of contents just from the actual work that you did?
So I started noticing that things would get lost in translation a lot, either in my
Mhm,
personal life or with clients.
mhm,
And the more I analyzed it, the more I started noticing that the things that would get lost in translation was simple misunderstandings.
mhm.
And I noticed that if I am going to simplify it, I saw that communication comprises internal and external factors. Our intentions are internal to us. Only I know my intention of whatever I am trying to do or the words that I choose or what I'm trying to say. Perception is also internal, but is internal to the receiver or the observer of the action. The only external thing is the action itself. That's why I call my model the IAP model, intention, action, perception. The thing is that my
Say that
view,
again. Say that again. Say that again for the psychoanalytically challenged.
sure, the IAP model, intention, action, perception.
Love that.
And
Love it.
it's the relationship of all three that becomes so important. I just came from a session when we were talking about silence, right? Sometimes somebody uses silence as I don't want to make matters worse. I don't know what to say. It's better to not say anything at all if you don't know what you're going to say. But other people will perceive that silence as you don't care,
Or
right?
stonewalling.
And or stonewalling. So
Mhm.
the action, which is the silence, gets lost in translation. One of the things that I actually wrote right on the back of my book is actions can only speak louder than words when their intentions are clear. If I don't know the intention behind your action, I will make an assumption based on my own perception.
Oh, I love that. Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
And where can we get this book?
Amazon. If
Okay.
you just go
Love it.
to
Great.
Amazon, yeah. But and I can talk about like in so not only understanding the theory, the concept behind this book was kind of a manual, right? So the
Mhm.
first chapter, the first and second, I'm talking about the theory and giving examples, using myself and my relationships as examples or citing examples of things that I've observed in the profession. But then chapter 3 talks about all the actionable strategies. What are the things that we can do knowing this information? And then chapter 4 are the worksheets for those of us like myself who are visual learners or kinesthetic. I need to process it. I've developed
Mhm.
worksheets for you to be able to apply all the coping strategies to help improve communication.
Yes. And the really great thing about that is when you actually write something down instead of typing it, it becomes more encoded in your subconscious.
Yeah. It's involving our senses, right?
Mhm.
One of the strategies that I've developed for the person giving the information, I call it the 3 columns of communication, right? The first column, which is what we tend to do, is the venting. When I am frustrated with someone and I start venting to them, I'm bound to go on to tangents. I will likely get interrupted in the middle because I'm somehow going to offend somebody, right? And then the fight goes somewhere totally different, and the message I wanted to get across gets lost along the way. So in column 1, I tell everybody to vent, pull a John Mayer and say what you need to say, not to the intended person. So you can use externalization tools. Um, I love when you talked about like writing, involving your senses. The more senses you involve, our senses are fact checkers. When we're thinking things in our head, everything sounds true. You know, when you're angry at someone and you're envisioning the fight, and you're like thinking of like what you're gonna say and what they are gonna say. So by the time you talk to them, they were not in your head during that fight, but you like what you say becomes disproportionate to them, but proportionate to your
Mhm.
head. So
Mhm.
the venting process is saying things out loud. When I say it out loud, I hear myself. If I'm writing, there's the sense of touch, there's the sense of vision, there is, if you're saying it out loud, the sense of hearing, right? So the externalization allows us to filter out what is what's actually true, or what am I actually feeling, from what is an exaggeration, what is BS, right? What my mind is creating. Then we go into column two. Once you've vented, now you decipher what's the message you want the intended person to receive. And in the book, I guide you to figure that out by asking questions. So, identifying, why do I want this person to receive this message? What purpose will it serve? What am I expecting in return? Once you have deciphered, then we go into column three, which is, what's the best delivery method knowing this individual? And if I don't know this individual, don't worry, you can always fall back into the I statement, which,
Yes,
have you heard of the I statement?
when you, I,
Yeah, right. That, but I put in the book the do's and don'ts of the I statement,
hmm
because I hear people using it erroneously so
hmm
often.
are like a weapon. They really like
Yeah.
use it as a
I
hammer.
The way I'll say, like, the best way to cheat the I statement is using the words like or that after the words I feel. I feel like you don't do enough. I feel that
Mhm.
you. I'm like, no, 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 no. This is not an I statement. This is a you statement disguised
Mhm.
under the veil of an I statement.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, that's a great point. And when you talk about all these different factors, I think you have to decide sometimes in relationships that are very intimate and tender which battles you want to actually get into, or
Yeah.
what like I have a like a weightings, like a what percentage of this really is all that important, or is it just me and my ego, or me like misinterpreting or whatever. So I really look at it from that standpoint. If I want to really do this, what's the outcome, what's the gain? Am I going to increase the relationship? I'm going to get more trust, more actually good stuff, or am I going to do possibly a little bit of damage that I might have to retract later?
Yeah. I love what you said, and it brings me to, I call these cognitive filters, which is the
Mhm,
filter that my thought must pass through before it comes out of my mouth.
mhm,
And one of my cognitive filters is, what purpose will this serve? Right? Will this actually serve me? Will this not serve me? Is it going to help the relationship, or is it going to harm it? So, an
mhm,
example that I can give is, once I was driving with my husband, and he was in a great mood, and I was not. And I was about to make a sassy comment, and I knew it was just gonna kind of ruin the mood. And that
mhm.
filter, what purpose will this serve, came through. And in answering that question, I'm like, well, it's gonna bring him down to my mood, which then led me to think I actually would rather come up to his. So instead, I decided to not say it, and I started to figure out, what do I need to bring myself back to that mood. Because we're in the car, I decided to put a genre of music from my childhood to see if that would kind of get me in a different mood. And it helped.
Mhm.
I mean, it wasn't amazing and it wasn't immediate, but better some than none, right?
Or sometimes you can just look around, particularly if you're driving and you're like maybe out in nature or someplace like that. You could say, "Oh wow, that's a beautiful tree." I like to do like love. I love that, or thank yous, and like, oh, thank you God for that tree. That was really beautiful. Look at those flowers over there, and I get external as opposed to
Yeah,
being in my head. And then the other thing I tell people is like, okay, you can be right or you can be happy. You get to decide.
yeah. I appreciate that. And sometimes even verbalizing, because again, we talked about silence, right? And silence can speak volumes. We just don't know if it's saying what we actually intended to say. So I can express to somebody, like, if they notice my silence and if they say something about it, I'm like, I was in a funky mood, and if I spoke, it was not going to be pretty. So I thought it would be best for me to be silent for a moment. Let me reset, right? As opposed to just being silent without that communication, because again, the other person is perceiving it from their point of view.
Mhm. Or if you're just laying back and you've got your shoes off and you got your feet on the top of the dashboard and you're like just hanging out and you're still silent, they might think, "Oh wow, she's really digging this. Like she's having a good time." Like the whole
Yeah.
body language thing so factors into how we perceive everything.
Oh my God. I was having a conversation with a friend of mine of how we are simultaneously and constantly reacting to one another, right? Without even knowing at times. So, a simple example, we were having a conversation about the words I don't care. And in our
Mm,
conversation, I said, like, to me, growing up, when I think of I don't care, when somebody tells me I don't care, it's a negative indifference, right? It means,
mhm,
let's
mhm,
shift gears, right?
mhm, mhm,
Whereas if you say, like, I am good either way, that's a positive indifference, right? Okay, I don't
mhm,
need to shift gears. I'll just choose one and we go. To her, I don't care is just indifference, right? There was no negative or positive. So when I was looking for a new pair of glasses because I lost mine, of course. And I was trying them on, and oh my God, give me a choice and I'll be there forever. And in our conversation, she said, "Oh, either one would be great." And I'm like, "Okay." So I felt comfortable to just continue trying them on. But I told her, had you said, I don't care, I would have immediately just choose one and go, right? Because I
mhm,
would have received that as I'm done with this. Can we please move on? Even though it wasn't her intention at all.
mhm.
Yeah.
Yes, yes, and it's great that you have a friend that you can verbalize those things to because some people like to process those things externally and some people don't. Some people get like a little intimidated by the whole thing. Like, I love those kind of conversations when, well, I have lots of colleagues like all around the world who are in different countries. And we like to talk about like how things sound differently or look differently uh, in different aspects. But it doesn't just relate to psychotherapy, it also relates to all forms of business,
Oh, yes.
sales, marketing, communication, the whole thing, psychology of sales and marketing, branding. Oh, all those underpinnings of what's the perception of what somebody thinks about a product line or a product. You know, it's just so subtle. And if you look at like Steve Jobs and Apple, what did he create? Oh my gosh, amazing, amazing. A legacy that people are still trying to understand and they still talk about it. I had a client who was a manager of an Apple store. He said, I have to get ready because when we unlock the doors, there's been a line of people out there, like maybe 2 blocks long, and they're all rushing in to get the new iPhone. So there's
Wow.
not a lot of selling going on, but there's like decisions to be made, colors, you know, how much memory, all these kind of things. And he says, and a lot of the people that I work with are 20 years younger than me. So I have to make adjustments based on how old they are, where they
Oh, for
came
sure.
from, all their political sort of things. Um, and it's just like he was in a milieu that was just, he was shifting all the time.
Yeah,
And he could
it's
verbalize.
but it's learning to communicate with whomever you're communicating, knowing my audience. And I take my hat off for those individuals who are able to be chameleons, right?
Oh, yes, they can shift.
Yeah, I'll share with you, my way of communicating is very different from my husband's or even this friend of mine. I'm very direct, right? I have the tendency to like it. I've become better at dancing with words a little bit. But growing up, like, my sister, my brother, and I were very close together, and we kind of learned from each other. We're just very direct with one another. My husband is the grandchild of a diplomat. So, like,
Okay.
like, he's very diplomatic. Sometimes, like, he'll talk to his parents, and I'm like, but you didn't say what you're gonna say. And he's like, yes, I did. I'm like, no, you didn't. It's like in my way I did. But one of
Hmm.
the things that I learned in talking with my father-in-law was he would take my directness as rudeness, right?
Oh, yes.
Whereas my being direct was my, like, I'm trying to be honest, I'm speaking with you in a respectful way, because to me,
Hmm.
to be honest and direct is being respectful.
Hmm.
So we, in our exchange, one of the golden questions that I ask is, what do I need from you to give you what you need? So I expressed to him, I'm going to work on my approach and try to catch myself, right? With awareness comes action. I'm going to try to catch myself and working softening my approach. But in the same token, I'll ask you to see my delivery from a softer lens. It has to be not one-sided. It has to be a minimum. If in a relationship contains two people, it has to go from both ends. I can be doing all the work on my own.
Hmm.
Mm.
And even that would be considered maybe a little bit pushy.
Yeah, but I really love because we now understand each other so much better because we
Mhm.
understand how the other speaks.
Yes, and diplomats have to do that chameleon thing all the time.
Yes. It's the reading between the lines.
Hmm.
So, but if I'm not giving you lines to read in between and you're still reading between them, I don't know what you are reading, right? Versus if I take the things that you give me at face value, but you're asking me to read between the lines, then I'm continuously misunderstanding you.
Yes, and I'm working with someone who has a really grand idea, and her grand idea is to bring more kindness into corporate America because
Oh,
we're our civility levels have definitely suffered the last couple of years. And one of the things we talked about is when you're around people who are doing kind things, by watching their actions, you develop these like mirror neurons, and you start to feel better by just watching the action.
yeah,
Like that's why
reciprocity.
people like to do all the videos on Instagram where people are saving dogs, or they're or the babies are just like super happy, or puppies are everywhere. So we get that wonderful feeling. Sometimes it's serotonin, sometimes it's even oxytocin, depending on the video. But it gives us a sense of soothing and joining, and it feels so good to us when we see other people doing these things. So I
Yeah.
think that happens too in relationships, when you just notice something about like your partner, and they're just like, and they're not even trying to do anything that are to impress you. They're just being themselves with someone else that you don't even know, or maybe they just met, and you just notice that about them, and it just sort of fills you with sort of like pride, like, oh, that's my person. Yeah, I picked that person. Yeah,
Yeah.
and they picked me. And there's that journey together when you can like express that, and sometimes people don't even notice that they're being that way, and when you bring it to their attention, it just gives them a boost.
Oh, for sure. I think gratitude plays a big role. Even in the book, I talk about it. So gratitude allows for acknowledgement, right? When you are doing something nice, it feels great to feel acknowledged for it because it takes away that resentment of feeling taken for granted. The
Mhm.
other thing is, if I'm in a contentious relationship, whenever somebody's talking to me, I will immediately contract my body and go into a defense mode because I am ready for that fight. If I don't know what's coming out of that person's mouth is a thank you or a complaint, now that ambivalence may
Mhm.
lead me to not contract immediately as long as that gratitude is consistent. Now, I'm not saying to give free gratitude because I don't think that
Right.
that is worthy,
It's
right? I
gratuitous.
think
Mhm.
exactly. I think it has to be intentional. I created the term instructive compliment, just like we have constructive criticism. I created the
Yes.
word instructive compliment because
Mhm.
growing up in my culture, a lot of the times, like people will say, "Oh, compliments are fluff; they have no function." And I disagree with that. I think a compliment allows me to know what I'm doing well that I don't need to work on or that I don't need to change. So I get to change
Mhm.
only the things that I'm not doing well. So an instructive compliment is me letting you know what I'm grateful for. Why is it that I'm giving you this compliment? What makes it worth it? As opposed to just say, oh, this is amazing. Oh, I'm so proud of you. Why? What's the significance of it?
Yes, and I think, catching people doing things right and it's spontaneous, it works great for kids because they
Mhm.
need to know if they're going in the right direction. And you say, "Yeah, I'm going to tell you why this was I made me so proud of you," and just explain it to them, and they're like, "Okay, I'm getting some more feedback, which sounds really good to me, and I'm going to try to do more of it because we're going to chase that feeling of I did something good. Let's get more of it, right?"
That's exactly it. The likelihood that that desired behavior will be repeated increases when it is validated, when it is acknowledged. So, one a quick challenge, if anybody would like to take it, is one, implement gratitude for everything that is worthy of gratitude. Thank you for taking the dishes out of the dishwasher. Thank you for making breakfast for me. Thank you for taking out the trash. And the other one is focus on what the person is doing right as opposed to what they're doing wrong for 10 days. See if
Mhm.
there is a shift at all.
It makes a huge difference, especially with kids. I would say catch them doing something right and keep catching them doing something right, and they'll do more right things because they want that feedback from that parent that makes them feel like, oh, I'm a good kid. Yeah, and all kids kind of like want to be a good kid. We have some troubled kids, but then we have to like just make a little shift in direction. Everybody wants to be appreciated and loved and cared for and feel like they're a valuable human being.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And that reciprocity exists. It becomes really big when I feel acknowledged. My desire to acknowledge can increase.
Mhm. I had a conversation with a client. She's a stepmom. The child is around 16, 17, and they forget to do things. And it annoys her because they forget to take their clothes out of the washer. And so there's wet clothes there. And so, like, she was in a kind of like, well, I'm kind of stuck because I don't, I don't get a lot of backup from dad because he's working all the time, and the mother is like totally spoiling and like my only child and gets everything and they have money, and so there's not a lot of levers. So I said, why don't you try this? Why don't you text him and ask him what he wants to do about the clothes in the washer? So he has to make a decision, and he can say, I forgot, or do you have time to put it in the dryer for me? And then she can, in reciprocity, can say, oh, okay, sure, I'll go ahead and put it in the dryer, and I'm going to go ahead and start washing, and I'll let you know when they're done. And so she's engaged them. They have to ask her to do something. She has to say she's going to do it, and then it has to get done. And then that makes it like a little woven little piece of reciprocity, which
Yeah.
is, as I told her, the beginning of good spycraft, because that's how you bring people into your web, reciprocity. And it starts with little small things, and it can work into really big things in the
Yeah.
long
I
term,
like
both
the
good and bad.
I like the idea of doing with, not for.
Yes. Hmm.
Yeah.
Yes. And
It's funny
especially
because
with a teenager.
yeah, and I had in my session we talked about how can we remember to not forget, right? And
Mhm.
really putting that question like, what do you need to do to remember to not forget? So how can my past self set up my future self for success? I use alarms all the time. I know my phone's gonna be with me no matter where I go, so I put alarms for everything. Like when you have this, you have this, you have that. Okay, let me have an alarm. When I fill my water bottle, um, my future self gets super happy with my past self. It's like, oh my God, you thought of me. Thank you so much. Versus times when I'm like, oh, I don't want to fill it up. Oh, my future self is going to be so unhappy. But it's how can I set myself up for success? What can I do to remember to not forget?
I love that. I love it. And I like you talking to your future self because it just brings like you into that propelling you, and you're not like, do I have
Yeah,
to do this?
I need to give a shout out to my amazing colleague, Dr. Taylor Wilmeth, because she's the one who's always telling me, oh, my future self set me up for success when she filled the water bottle. And I'm like, yes, that is so true.
Well, I can tell you that this has been so delightful. And I'm going to tell you too that so many people are going to get so many good tips and ideas from you from this conversation. And I'm hoping they're all going to run out to Amazon or their Kindle and download this book because I think it's fabulous. I'm going to put it in my bookmarks for my clinical practice because sometimes people say, well, can you recommend something? And I'll just send them the link. I keep the links all set up so that I'll just say like, okay, here's one, here's one, here's one. I also do that for my podcast too, and I'll say, hey, you want to learn how to get better communication? Listen to this one. This is Dr. Kamerman. She's got this great book. You'll really enjoy it.
Oh,
So,
I
for all our
appreciate it.
audience out there, first of all, subscribe and follow because that's how we get more information out to more people. But I'm going to ask the doc if she's got like a really good tip for us as we start to sign off.
Okay, so my tip of the day is pausing, right? Whenever you receive something, pause and identify is the way that I received it, the way that it was intended. And I have a really easy way for us to do this. It's called the rule of three interpretations. Um, think about the fact, the information that I received. My immediate assumption is often worst case scenario. I don't know why. Before responding, identify two other possibilities of interpreting the same thing. If I was supposed to receive a call from somebody and I didn't, my first assumption is they're going to break up with me or they don't care. Pause. Balance sake, if I think worst case scenario, best case scenario, they got caught up at work or they're throwing me a surprise party. I don't know.
Mhm.
Likely case scenario, their battery died. They'll give me a call when they have a chance. And then choose the one that serves you best.
Or they're driving in traffic and they shouldn't be talking to anybody anyway, especially if you're in
Yeah.
Miami.
There is more than one possible way to interpret the same thing.
Yes, yes. And if we just that pausing, I think the pausing thing really give us a chance to go, go inside. Does this remind us of something else that happened? Like we were rejected because of so and so? I mean, are we taking the past and blending it in with the current thing
Yeah.
and projecting the future?
Yeah. So
Because
press the pause button.
press the pause button. And as humans, we always have that opportunity to do that. We can slow down, relax, enjoy each other, and just have a wonderful life communicating by thinking about what's inside and outside. And we get to choose how we think about it and what we think the person meant. And then we can ask them and have a conversation. I love
Yes.
that.
Choose the
Oh,
perception that serves you best.
yes. Oh, and I just love this. I can't wait to get your book. I can't wait to share it with all these people. And I really appreciate you being with me on this evening. And thank you so much for joining us. This has been fabulous.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate you.
Thank you.